Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Om Ganana Antva Ganapati Gammavahe Kavin Kavinam Upavashravasramam Jeshtam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anushrunnoti Viseda Sadhanam. Om Mahaganadipataye Namaha. Hari Om Hari Om. केशवाय नमः नारायणाय नमः माधवाय नमः गोविंदाय नमः ओम विष्णुवे नमः मत्सूदनाय नमः त्रिविक्रमाय नमः वामनाय नमः श्रीधराय नमः ऋषिकेशाय नमः पद्मनाभाय नमः धराय नमः संकर्षणाय नमः वासुदेवाय नमः प्रद्युम्नाय नमः निरुद्धाय नमः पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः दोक्षाय नमः नारसिंहाय नमः अच्युताय नमः जनार्दनाय नमः उपेन्द्राय नमः हरे नमः श्री कृष्णाय नमः श्री कृष्णाय नमः श्री कृष्णाय नमः. Dear friends, we came to the 6th chapter of 11th canto of Mahabhagavad Purana. In this chapter, Brahma and other gods come to Krishna and ask him to come back to Vaikuntha back because he has already done all the work he has been requested to do. That's why. This description also gives the Yadu Dynasty retires to Prabhasa Kshetra. This chapter describes how Brahma and other gods, after offering prayers to Lord Krishna, requested the Lord to return to his own abode, that is Vaikuntha, and how Uddhava, anticipating separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was very distressed and prayed to Sri Krishna that he might accompany him on his return to that abode if possible. Desiring to see Sri Krishna in his human-like form, which enchants all the worlds, the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Rishis, Pitas, Pitrus, Vidyadharas, Kinnaras, and other gods, all headed by Brahma, Shiva, and Indra, arrived at the city of Dwaraka, covering the body of Krishna with the flower garlands from the Nandana gardens of heaven. They praised him with statements about his transcendental power and qualities. All living entities, beginning with Brahma, are subordinate to Lord Sri Krishna. Krishna creates the universe by empowering his expansion Mahavishnu. Although Krishna creates, maintains, and destroys this world through his material energy, he remains transcendental to the material energy and perfectly self-satisfied. Even in the midst of his 16,000 queens, Lord Krishna is undisturbed, because he has made an expansion to become 16,000 Krishnas. So everybody thinks that Krishna is with them. Performance of fruitive sacrifices and yajnas, yogis desiring mystic power contemplate the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna to attain their materialistic objectives. But the most elevated devotees who desire liberation from the bondage of material work lovingly contemplate the Lord's lotus-like feet, because those feet are in the fire. Those feet are the fire that destroys all the desires of sense gratification. That fire destroys all materialistic ideas. One cannot actually purify the mind by ordinary worship, penance, and other such processes. One can purify the mind contaminated by sense gratification only through the mature faith in the mode of goodness. That is Sattvika, Guna, and also achieving Shuddha Sattva. Among the Sattvikas, we need to reach Shuddha Sattva, that is mature faith in mode of goodness, which arises by hearing the glories of Krishna only. It comes by reading the Mahabhagavata Purana, Bhagavad Gita, and following the Bhagavad Puranas, Bhagavad Dharma, then only you will get Shuddha Sattva. Therefore, intelligent persons situated in the Varnashrama system serve the two kinds of holy places, the nectarian rivers of the topics of the Krishna and the nectarian rivers flowing from the Lord's lotus feet. That's like Ganga and Yamuna. By incarnating with the Yadu Dynasty, Krishna performed the highest welfare work for the entire universe by displaying his transcendental pastime. By incarnating within the Yadu Dynasty, Lord Krishna performed the highest welfare work for the entire universe by displaying his transcendental pastimes. Simply by hearing and chanting about these pastimes, pious persons in Kali Yuga can definitely cross over the ocean of material illusion. When the Lord had fulfilled the purpose of his descent and the Yadu dynasty was facing imminent destruction from the Brahmana's curse, the Lord desired to wind up his pastime. When Brahma prayed to the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna for the deliverance of himself and all the other gods to come back to Vaikuntha, Sri Krishna revealed in his reply that after the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, he would return to his own abode. Observing terrible disturbances indicating the imminent destruction of the world, the Lord Krishna called together the wise members of the Yadu dynasty and reminded them of the Brahmana's curse. Lord convinced them to go to Prabhasa Kshetra or Prabhasa Tirtha, where they could save themselves by the performance of ritual bathing, charity, and so on. The Yadus, in obedience to Krishna's desire, prepared to journey to Prabhasa Kshetra. Upon seeing and hearing the Lord's conversation with the Yadu dynasty, Uddhava approached Lord Krishna in a secluded place, offered him full obeisances, and with folded hands expressed his inability to tolerate separation from the Lord Krishna. He begged Krishna to carry him to his own abode along with him. If one tastes the nectar of Krishna's pastimes with his ears, one loses all hankering for other things. Persons who engage constantly in Krishna's service while eating, sporting, sleeping, sitting, etc. If one tastes the nectar of Krishna's pastimes with his ears, one loses all hankering for other things. Persons who engage constantly in Krishna's service while eating, sporting, sleeping, sitting, etc., cannot tolerate separation from Krishna. They honor all kinds of remnants from Sri Krishna and thus conquer the Lord's illusory energy. Peaceful members of the renounced order attain Brahmaloka after the exhaustive and painful exertion, whereas the devotees of the Lord simply discuss Lord Krishna among themselves, chant and remember his various pastimes and instructions, and thus automatically cross beyond the insurmountable material energy. This is the summary of the 6th chapter. Now we are going to read the shlokas one after the other. Shuka Vacha, it starts with Shuka Maharshi shloka. Ata Brahma Teche Devye Prajeshwaravrato Brgat Bhavascha Bhuta Bhavyesho Yo Bhuta Ganer Vrataha. Yo Bhuta Ganer Vrataha. Shuka Mahamuni is telling to Parikshit Maharaja, Lord Brahma then set off for Dwarka, accompanied by his own sons as well as the other gods and the great Prajapatis. Lord Shiva, the bestower of auspiciousness to all living beings, also went along with Brahma, surrounded by many ghostly features. Indro Marudbir Bhagavan Ditya Vasuvoshvino Rubo Giriso Rudro Vishve Swadrasha Devata. The powerful Lord Indra, along with the Marutas, Adityas, Vasus, Ashwinis, Ribhus, Angirasas, Rudras, Vishwadevas, Sadhyas, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Guhyakas, the great sages and forefathers and the Vidyadharas of Kinnaras, arrived at the city of Dwarka, hoping to see Lord Krishna. By his transcendental form, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, enchanted all human beings and spread his own fame throughout this world. The Lord's glories destroy all contamination within the universe. The personality of Godhead descends within the material world to assist the other gods in the cosmic management. Thus, the other gods can normally see such forms of the Lord as Upendra. However, here it is indicated that although accustomed to seeing various Vishnu expansions of the Lord, the other gods were specifically eager to see the most beautiful form of the Lord as Krishna. Deha Dehi Vibhagasa Cha Nashver Vidyate Kavachit. There is no distinction between the Supreme Lord and his personal body. The Jiva soul is different from his body, but the beautiful transcendental form of the Lord Krishna is identical with the Lord in all respects. In that resplendent city of Dwaraka Nagara, rich with all superior opulences, the other gods beheld with unsatiated eyes the wonderful form of Sri Krishna. The other gods covered the Supreme Lord Krishna of the universe with flower garlands brought from the gardens of the heaven. Then they praised him, the best of the Yadu Dynasty, with statements containing charming words and ideas. The other gods began to speak. Our dear Lord Krishna, advanced mystic yogis striving for liberation from the severe bondage of material work, meditate with great devotion upon your lotus feet within their hearts, dedicating our intelligence, senses, vital air, mind, and power of speech to your lordship. We gods bow down at your lotus feet. According to Srila Sridhara Swami, the word sma in this verse indicates vismaya, astonishment. The other gods were astonished that although great mystic yogis are only able to contemplate the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna within their hearts, the other gods arriving in the city of Dwaraka were able to see before them the entire body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Therefore, the powerful other gods fell down like the sticks before the Lord. Such full obeisance is called Dandavat, like a stick, or described as follows: Dandavat Pramana, Dandavat Pranama. The obeisances offered with 8 limbs are made with the 2 arms, the 2 legs, the 2 knees, and the chest, and the head, and the eyes, the mind, and the power of speech. It's called Sashtanga Namaskara. Sashta, all, Anga. Sashta means 8 limbs, 8 touching the ground. When you make a Sashtanga Pranam, Dandavat Pranam, the currents of material nature are very powerful, and one should therefore cling tightly to the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, the violent waves of sense gratification and mental speculation will undoubtedly sweep one away from one's eternal constitutional position as the loving servitor of the Supreme Lord, and one will then fall down into the stringent bondage described here as Urupasat, a powerful illusionary network. O unconquerable Lord, you engage your illusory energy composed of 3 modes to unleash, maintain, and devastate the inconceivable manifest cosmos, all within your own self. As the supreme superintendent of Maya, you appear to be situated in the interaction of the modes of nature. However, you are never affected by material activities. In fact, you are directly engaged in your own eternal spiritual bliss, and thus you cannot be accused of any material infection. The other gods coming from the heaven are telling like this to Lord Krishna: O unconquerable Lord Krishna, you engage your illusory energy composed of 3 modes to unleash, maintain, and devastate the inconceivable manifest cosmos, all within your own self. As the supreme superintendent of Maya, because Lord Krishna controls the Maya, illusion, you appear to be situated in the interaction of the modes of nature. However, you are never affected by material activities. In fact, you are directly engaged in your own eternal spiritual bliss, and thus you cannot be accused of any material infection. The word Durve Bhavayam is significant here. The ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of material world is certainly inconceivable, even for the greatest mundane scientists who waste their lives in useless and fruitless speculation. At Mahavishnu, who is the secondary expansion of the Supreme Lord Krishna, sees the entire cosmos to be like an insignificant atom. So, what hope is there for foolish so-called scientists who try to understand Lord Krishna by their ridiculous experimental power? Thus, the word anavadya is used. No one can find fault or discrepancy in the body, character, activities or instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. The Lord is never materially ignorant. Therefore, he never exhibits cruelty, laziness, foolishness, blindness, or material intoxication. Similarly, because the Lord is never polluted by material passion, he never exhibits material pride, lamentation, yarning, or violence. And since the Lord is free from material goodness, he never attempts to peacefully enjoy the material world with a sublime materialistic mentality. Lord Krishna, as stated here, is eternally busy day and night. Lord Krishna, as stated here, Sve Sukhe Vyahite Britaha is, that means he is eternally busy day and night in his transcendental abode, relishing the inconceivable loving devotion of his innumerable associates. The Lord is being embraced and is embracing. He is joking and is hearing the joking of his loved ones. The Lord is walking through the forest full of fruits and flowers, playing in the nectarian river Yamuna, and taking part in his most confidential, transcendental, loving affairs with the cowherd girls of Vrindavana. These pastimes in Krishna Loka and on other Vaikuntha planets are eternal. These pastimes in Krishna Loka and other Vaikuntha planets are eternal, faultless, and an ocean of spiritual happiness. The Lord never descends to the dry platform of relative material happiness. The infinite personality of Godhead has nothing to gain from anyone. Thus, fruitive activity cannot possibly exist in the Lord. O greatest of all, those whose consciousness is polluted by illusion cannot purify themselves merely by ordinary worship, study of the Vedas, charity, austerity, and ritual activities. Our Lord, those pure souls who have developed a powerful transcendental faith in your glories, achieve a purified state of existence that can never be attained by those lacking such faith. Those people who got a faith only can achieve. O greatest of all, those whose consciousness is polluted by illusion cannot purify themselves merely by ordinary worship. By taking a worshipping process ordinarily is not going to reach the Shuddha Sattva. Study of the Vedas, charity, austerity, and ritual activities. Ordinary worship, study of the Vedas, charity, austerity, and ritual activities. Our Lord, those pure souls who have developed a powerful transcendental faith in your glories, achieve a purified state of existence that comes only after reaching the Shuddha Sattva. Just a Sattvika guna is not enough. You need to achieve a purified state of existence that's called Shuddha Sattva that can never be attained by those lacking such faith. You need to have a full 100% faith in Lord Krishna and his teachings, and then only you will achieve a Shuddha Sattva stage. Even if a pure devotee is lacking the above qualifications such as Vedic study and austerity, if he has unflinching faith in Lord Krishna, the Lord will save him because of his devotion. On the other hand, if one becomes falsely proud of one's material qualifications, including ordinary piety, but does not devote himself to hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna, the result will ultimately be nil. The transcendental spirit soul cannot be purified by any amount of material piety. The transcendental spirit soul cannot be purified by any amount of material piety, charity, or scholarship. Only the transcendental Supreme Lord can purify the transcendental living entity by bestowing his mercy within the heart. That is important. You need to get the mercy of Lord Krishna. When the mercy of Lord Krishna comes to you, you have to surrender to Krishna and go through the devotional activities all the time and reaching the Shuddha Sattva stage with faith and Hello, Thomas. Yeah, I am interested in that property in Middlesbrough. But the thing is, I need to get approved by the pension office, and I have sent the details to them. Now, what is the guarantee that we can get a tenant when they leave it? Is there any? Is it difficult to get a tenant in that area? They got a break class in 5 years, isn't it? Hmm. Uh-huh. Hmm. If they leave it, we will get increased rent, is it? Yeah, really? With all the negative problems with the COVID, they survived the COVID problems. Hmm. Tommy, I'm in the middle of the YouTube meeting. That's why I was late in answering the phone. I will come back to you once I finish this program. I'll come back to you. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye. To attain mercy of Lord Krishna, people has to continuously engage in chanting devotional activities pertaining to Lord Krishna and reading his pastimes, reading Bhagavata, reading Bhagavad Gita, reach the Shuddha Sattva stage, then only you can achieve the mercy of Lord Krishna. If you don't achieve Shuddha Sattva stage, the Lord Krishna's mercy will not easily come to the people. The other gods were astonished at their good fortune. Even by hearing about Krishna, one achieves all perfection. Because even if the people don't read Veda, people don't read anything else, just engaged on devotional activities like gopis, Lord Krishna's mercy will come to you. But you have to follow Shuddha Sattva and follow the advice given in Bhagavata Dharma in your life. That is very important. Then only the Lord Krishna likes. Lord Krishna's mercy will come to you if you like. If you start seeing Lord Krishna in every animal and bird's face, you need to see Lord Krishna's face. You can't miss the Lord Krishna. Wherever you go, wherever you see, you must say Lord Krishna there. Then only the mercy will come to you. So that sort of mercy is given by Lord Krishna to all the Shuddha Sattva devotees who are remembering Krishna all the time. But they had entered the Lord's own city and were seeing him standing before him. The, the other gods who came from heaven are happy to see Lord Krishna in Dwarakanagar. Great sages, desiring the highest benefit in life, always cherish your lotus feet within their hearts, which are melted by love for you. Similarly, your self-controlled devotees, desiring to cross beyond the material kingdom of heaven to achieve opulence equal to yours, worship your lotus feet in the morning, at noon, and in the evening. Thus, they meditate upon your lordship in your quadruple expansion. Your lotus feet are just like blazing fire that burns to ashes all the inauspicious desires of the material sense of gratification. The conditioned living entity can purify his existence simply by having full faith, firm faith in the transcendental glories of personality of Godhead Lord Krishna. What they can be said of the extraordinary good fortune of the other gods who were directly seeing Lord Krishna's lotus feet all the time. Although we are presently afflicted by innumerable material desires, these desires are temporary. The eternal living entity is meant to experience a loving relationship with the supreme living entity, Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And by rendering pure devotional service to the Lord, the heart of living entity is completely satisfied. The word Dhumaketu in this verse indicates a flaming comet or a fire which represents Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the master of the mode of ignorance, Tamasaguna, and Lord Krishna's lotus feet are compared to the comet, a symbol of potency of Shiva, which can destroy all ignorance within the heart. The word Sama Vibhutye, for achieving equal opulence, indicates that the pure devotees go back home, back to Godhead of Krishna Loka or Goloka or Vaikuntha and enjoy the infinite bliss of the spiritual world. Lord Krishna is endowed with unlimited opulent paraphernalia for enjoyment, and a liberated soul who goes to Krishna's abode is awarded all opulence for serving the Lord. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, the word Vyuha in this verse indicates the three Purusha incarnations, namely Mahavishnu, Garbhodakasya Vishnu, and Kshirodakasya Vishnu, as well as Vasudeva. If we can scientifically understand how Krishna expands himself to create the material world, we shall immediately experience that everything is the property of Krishna and thus become free from the desire to exploit it for our own selfish purposes. Krishna is the Supreme Lord, the master of the everyone and the reservoir of all opulences. And one should remember his lotus feet in the morning, at noon, and in the evening, and while sleeping also. One who always remembers Krishna and never forgets him will experience real blissful life beyond the pale shadow of the material illusion. So, chanting Krishna's name, 24 names of Krishna, all the time will help you. Even while taking a bath in the sea or the ocean or in the river or in the shower room in your bathroom, all the time you can chant. When you're spraying the water to all the limbs, you can chant the Krishna's name. There is no harm in doing that. Krishna should be there in your mouth and mind all the time of the day. Those about to offer oblations into the fire of sacrifice in accordance with the Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Rigveda, meditate on your lotus feet. Similarly, the people, when you are doing chanting Purusha Sukta, you are chanting for Krishna only. When you are doing Yajna, when you are doing fire oblations, when you are sacrificing, doing Yajna in Yajurveda, Rigveda, Samaveda, all the Vedas meditate on the lotus feet of Krishna. Similarly, the practitioners of transcendental yoga meditate upon your lotus feet also, hoping for knowledge about your divine mystic potency. And the most elevated pure devotees perfectly worship your lotus feet, desiring to cross beyond your illusory potency. The words Atma Mayam, Jitnyushubish are significant in this universe. In this verse, the mystic yogis, Adhyatma Yoga, Uta Yogi Bhi, are eager to acquire knowledge of the Lord's mystic potencies, whereas the pure devotees, Parama Bhagavata, are eager to cross beyond the kingdom of illusion so that they can serve Lord Krishna's lotus feet in pure loving ecstasy. In any case, everyone is interested in the potency of Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. The atheistic material scientists are also fascinated by external material potency of the Lord, and the gross sense gratifiers are attracted by the physical body, which is also Atmamaya, or an expansion of the Lord's potency. Although all of the Lord's potencies are qualitatively one with the Lord and therefore with each other. Although all of the Lord's potencies are qualitatively one with the Lord and therefore with each other, the blissful spiritual potency is nevertheless supreme because it establishes relationship between the Lord and the pure living entities on the platform of eternal happiness. Every living entity is originally a loving servitor of the Lord, and the spiritual energy of the Lord engages the living entity in his pure constitutional position beyond illusion. Our dreaming and waking experiences are both activities of the mind. However, the activities we perform while awake are more valuable because they establish us in our permanent situation. Similarly, at every moment, every living entity is experiencing one of the innumerable potencies of the Supreme Lord. However, the experience of the spiritual potency is more significant because it establishes the living entity in his eternal constitutional position as a faithful servitor of the personality of Godhead. However, the experience of the spiritual potency is more significant because it establishes the living entity in his eternal constitutional position as a faithful servitor of the personality of Godhead. The other gods are glorifying the Lord's lotus feet because they are personally very eager to be purified by contact with those feet. Tavangrir asmakam ashubhasya dhumaketu syat. When a sincere devotee eagerly desires to attain the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, the Lord brings him to his personal abode, just as the other gods were brought to Dwaraka by Lord Krishna's arrangement. O Almighty Lord, you are so kind to your servants that you have accepted the withered flower garland that we have placed on your chest. Since the goddess of fortune makes the abode on your transcendental chest, she will undoubtedly become agitated like a jealous co-wife upon seeing our offering also dwelling there. Yet you are so merciful that you neglect your eternal consort Lakshmi and accept our offering as most excellent worship. O merciful Lord, may your lotus feet always act as a blazing fire to consume the inauspicious desires within our hearts. Lord Krishna gratefully and happily accepts even the most meager offering from his loving devotees. Lord Krishna is conquered by the love of his pure devotees, just as a father is easily conquered by the most insignificant gift. Just as a father is easily conquered by the most insignificant gift offered by his loving child, unless a transcendentalist completely gives up the impersonal conception of life, he cannot make such a loving offering to the Lord. The process of meditation upon Supersoul within the heart is called Dhyana Yoga. The process of meditation upon the Supersoul within the heart is called Dhyana Yoga. Is not as pleasing to Krishna as Bhakti Yoga or devotion service, because in Dhyana or meditation, the yogi is trying to satisfy himself and not the Lord by attaining mystic powers. Similarly, in order to acquire material benefits from the Lord, ordinary people worship God in temples, churches, and mosques, but one who desires actual spiritual perfection must be enlivened to always chant and hear the glories of the Lord. Such devotional enthusiasm is motivated by love of Godhead and is devoid of any selfish expectation. The Lord is so kind that he neglects his own eternal consort, Lakshmi, and gives preference to his humble devotees. Just as a man will neglect the loving embrace of his wife when his affectionate child approaches him with a gift. Srila Jiva Goswami has pointed out that any garland worn by the Lord cannot be faded because all of the Lord's personal paraphernalia is completely transcendental and spiritually opulent. Similarly, there is no possibility that mundane jealousy could appear in the character of the goddess Fortune, who is transcendental as Lord Krishna himself. Therefore, the statements of the demigods and other gods are to be understood as humorous words, inspired by intense love of Godhead. The other gods enjoy the protection of Lakshmi and ultimately of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna also. And due to their confidence in their loving relationship with the Lord Krishna and his consort, they feel free to speak in a joking way. O omnipotent Lord, in your incarnation as Trivikrama, you raised your leg like a flagpole to break the shell of a universe, allowing the holy Gangas to flow down like a banner of victory in the three branches throughout the three planetary systems. By three mighty steps of your lotus feet, your lordship captured Bali Maharaja along with his universal kingdom. Your lotus feet inspire fear in the demons by driving them down to the hell, and fearlessness among your devotees by elevating them to the perfection of heavenly life. We are sincerely trying to worship you, our Lord. Therefore, may your lotus feet kindly free us from all of our sinful reactions. So this is how the other gods are requesting Lord Krishna. They are sincerely trying to worship you, our Lord Krishna. Therefore, may your lotus feet kindly free us from all our sinful reactions. This can happen only after reaching Shuddha Sattva. In order to reclaim the other gods, the universal kingdom seized by Bali Maharaja, Lord Krishna, as described in the 8th canto of this great work, appeared as the beautiful dwarf Brahmana Vamana Avatara, who extended his foot upward to the outer limits of the universe. When the Lord's leg breached a hole in the universal shell, the holy Ganga river water came flowing into the universe. This scene appeared like an unprized flagpole with a wonderfully flowing victory banner. As stated in the Shruti mantras, Charanam, Pavitram, Vitanam, Puranam, Ena Putas Tarati Duskritini. The lotus feet of personality of Godhead are most pure, all pervading, and the boldest of all. One who is purified by them crosses over all previous sinful activities. Throughout the universe, the process of worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord is the most famous. Throughout the universe, the process of worshipping the lotus feet of Lord is most famous. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the transcendental entity who is superior to both material nature and the enjoyer of nature. May your lotus feet bestow transcendental pleasure upon all of us. All of the great gods, beginning with Brahma, are embodied living entities struggling painfully with one another under the strict control of your time factor. They are just like bulls dragged by ropes tied through their pierced noses. Srila Sridhara Swami states, Nano yude devarasudida parasparam jayanti jiyante cha kim aham tatreti ata ahu nasti mitu ridyaman. In the perpetual battles between the gods or devotees of the Lord and the demons or non-devotees, each side sometimes conquers and is sometimes apparently defeated. One may argue that all this has nothing to do with the personality of Godhead, since it is based on nothing more than interaction of opposing living entities. But every living entity is, however, strictly under the control of the personality of Godhead Krishna, and victory and defeat are always in the hands of the Lord. This does not contradict the fact of the living entity's free will, since the Lord awards victory and defeat according to the merit of the living entities. In a legal battle, neither the prosecution nor the defense can act independently of the legal system presided over by the authorized judge. Victory and defeat in the court are awarded by the judge, but the judge is acting according to the laws, which do not favor or discriminate against either side. Similarly, the personality of Godhead is awarding us the results of our previous activities in order to discredit God. Materialists frequently give the argument that oftentimes innocent people suffer, whereas impious rogues enjoy life unimpeded. The fact is, however, that the personality of Godhead is not a fool, as are the materialistic persons who place such arguments. The Lord can see our many previous lives. Therefore, He may allow one to enjoy or suffer in this life, not only as a result of one's present activities, but also as a result of one's previous activities. For example, by working very hard, a man may accumulate a fortune. For example, by working very hard, a man may accumulate a fortune. If such a newly rich man then gives up his work and takes to a degenerate life. For example, by working very hard, a man may accumulate a fortune. If such a newly rich man then gives up his work and takes to a degenerate life, his fortune does not immediately disappear. On the other hand, one who is destined to become rich may now be working very hard with discipline and austerity, and yet be without spending money. So a superficial observer might well be confused upon seeing the moral, hard-working man without funds and a degenerate, lazy man in possession of richness. Similarly, a materialistic fool without knowledge of past, present, and future is unable to understand the perfect justice of personality of Godhead. The example given in this verse to explain Krishna's controlling power is appropriate. Although a bull is extremely powerful, he is easily controlled by a slight tug on a rope strung through his pierced nose. Similarly, even the most powerful politicians, scholars, demigods, etc., may immediately be put into an unbearable situation by the omnipotent personality of Godhead. Therefore, the other gods have not come to Dwaraka to proudly display their universal political and intellectual powers, but to humbly surrender to the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. You are the cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. As time, you regulate the subtle and manifest states of material nature and control every living being. As the threefold wheel of time, you diminish all things by your imperceptible actions, and thus you are the supreme personality of Godhead. The word Gabira Raya, or imperceptible speed and power, is significant. We observe that by the laws of nature, all material things, including your own bodies, gradually disintegrate. Although we can perceive the long-term results of this aging process, we cannot experience the process itself. For example, no one can feel how his hair or fingernails are growing. We perceive the cumulative result of their growth, but from the moment to moment, we cannot experience it. Similarly, a house gradually decays until it is demolished. From moment to moment, we cannot perceive exactly how this is happening. But in the course of longer intervals of time, we can actually see the deterioration of the house. In other words, we can experience the results of manifestations of aging and deterioration. But as it is taking place, the process itself is imperceptible. This is the wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his own form of time. The word Trinabhi indicates that according to the astrological calculation of the sun's movements, the year can be divided into three sections. The word Trinabhi indicates that according to the astrological calculation of the sun's movements, the year can be divided into three sections. Those represented by the Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio, and Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. There are 12 months, and they are dividing into three sections, 4 months each. The word Uttama Purusha or Purushottama is explained in Bhagavad Gita also. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and infallible, and because I am greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. My dear Lord, the original Purana, Avatara, Mahavishnu acquires his creative potency from you. Thus, with infallible energy, he impregnates material nature, producing the Mahatattva. Then the Mahatattva, the amalgamated material energy, endowed with the potency of the Lord, produces from itself the primeval golden egg of the universe, which is covered by various layers of material elements. In the previous verses, the supremacy of the personality of Godhead has been established in relation to the living entity and material nature. In this verse, it is clearly stated that Lord Krishna is the source of the greatest Vishnu incarnation, Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu acquires his creative potency from Lord Krishna. It would therefore be foolish to summarize that Lord Krishna is an expansion of Vishnu. In this regard, the opinion of the other gods, headed by Brahma, can be taken as final. O Lord, you are the supreme creator of this universe and the ultimate controller of all moving and non-moving entities, non-moving living entities. You are Hrishikesha, the supreme controller of all sensory activity, and thus you never become contaminated or entangled in the course of your supervision of the infinite sensory activities within the material creation. On the other hand, other living entities, even yogis and philosophers, are disturbed and frightened simply by remembering the material objects that they have supposedly renounced in their pursuit of enlightenment. Supreme Lord Krishna is within the heart of every conditioned soul and guides the living entity in the pursuit and experience of sense gratification. The, the disappointing results of such activities gradually convince the conditional soul to reject material life and surrender again to the Lord within his heart. Lord Krishna is never affected by the futile attempts of living entities to enjoy his illusory energy. For the personality of Godhead, there is no possibility of fear or disturbance, because nothing is ultimately separate from him. My Lord, you are living with 16,000 exquisitely beautiful aristocratic wives by their irresistible coy and smiling glances and by their lovely arching eyebrows. They send you messages of eager conjugal love, but they are completely unable to disturb the mind and senses of your lordship. It is demonstrated that the Lord has no desire to enjoy even a spiritual sense gratification. Krishna is complete in himself. He is the reservoir of all pleasure, and he does not lust after anything material spiritual. The argument may be given that Krishna, in order to please his wife Satyabhama, brought the Parijata flower plant from heaven and thus appeared to be henpecked husband under the control of his living wife. But although Krishna is sometimes conquered by the love of his devotees, he is never influenced by the desire to enjoy like an ordinary lusty materialistic person. The non-devotees cannot understand the overwhelming loving feelings exchanged between the Lord and his pure devotees. Krishna may be conquered by our intense love for him, and thus pure devotees can control the Lord sometimes. For example, the elderly gopis in Vrindavana would clap their hands in different rhythm to make Krishna's dance, and in Dwaraka Satyabhama ordered Krishna to bring her a flower as a proof of his love for her. As stated in Srinivasa Acharya's songs to the 6 Goswamis, Gopi Bhava Rasamrita Rasamritabdi Lahari Kalola Magnu Muha. The love between the Lord and his pure devotee is an ocean of spiritual bliss. But at the same time, Krishna remains completely self-satisfied. Krishna indifferently give up the company of the incomparable young damsels of Prajabhumi, the gopis, and went to Mathura at the request of his uncle, Akrura. Thus neither the gopis of Vrindavana nor the queens of Dwaraka could arouse an enjoying spirit in Krishna. When all is said and done, pleasure in this world means sex. But this mundane sexual attraction is simply a prevented reflection of the transcendental loving affairs between the Krishna and his eternal associates in the spiritual world. The gopis of Vrindavana are unsophisticated village girls, whereas the queens of Dwaraka are aristocratic young ladies. But both gopis and the queens are overwhelmed with love for Krishna. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna displays the highest perfection of beauty, strength, wealth, fame, knowledge, and renunciation, and is thus completely satisfied by his own supreme position. He reciprocates spiritual loving affairs with the gopis and queens simply for their sake. Only fools think that Lord Krishna could be attracted by the perverted illusory pleasures to which we poor conditioned souls are so blindly attached. Therefore, everyone should recognize the supreme transcendental position of the personality of Godhead and surrender to him. That is the clear implication of this statement by the other gods. The nectar-bearing rivers of discussions about you and also the holy rivers generated from the bathing of your lotus feet are able to destroy all contamination within the 3 worlds. Those who are striving for purification associate with the holy narrations of your glories by hearing them with their ears, and they associate it with the holy rivers flowing from your lotus feet by physically bathing in them. The nectar-bearing rivers of the discussions about you and also the holy rivers generated from the bathing of your lotus feet are able to destroy all contamination within the 3 worlds. Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati rivers are all pious rivers, very great rivers. And if you take a bath in Ganga, It has been believed that your sins will be cleared. Those who are striving for purification associate with the holy narrations of your glories by hearing them with their ears, and they associate with the holy rivers flowing from your lotus feet by physically bathing in them. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura states, Anushravam Kurur Uchashravam Anushriyante. One should hear about Krishna by hearing from spiritual master. The bona fide spiritual master describes the pastimes, potencies, and incarnations of the personality of Godhead to his disciple. If the spiritual master is bona fide, and if the disciple is sincere and obedient, if the spiritual master is a bona fide, and if the disciple is sincere and obedient, then the communication between the guru and disciple is just like nectar, both for the guru and for the disciple. Ordinary persons cannot even imagine the special pleasure. Ordinary persons cannot even imagine the special pleasure experienced by the devotees of the Lord. Such nectarian speaking and hearing destroys all contaminations within the heart of a conditioned soul, the primary contamination being the desire to live without serving Krishna. The other nectar described here is Charanamrita, the nectarian waters that bathe the Lord's feet. Lord Vamanadeva bathed his own lotus feet by kicking the hole in the universal covering so that sacred Ganga water washed his lotus, washed his toes and fell into the universe. The Yamuna river also washed Krishna's lotus feet when the Lord appeared on this planet 5,000 years ago, when Vasudeva carried Krishna on his head. In the crossing the Well river, Yamuna river was washed his Lord Krishna's feet. Krishna sported daily with his boyfriends and girlfriends in the Yamuna river also. Consequently, that river is also Charanamrita. One should therefore try to take bath in Ganga or Yamuna. Even morning in ISKCON temples, the lotus feet of the deity of Krishna are bathed, and the water thus sanctified is also called Charanamrita. The nectar, it's also done in all the Krishna temples. All the Krishna temples, Krishna's feet is bathed, and the water thus sanctified is also called Charanamrita, the nectar of the Krishna's lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada taught his disciples and followers to come before the deities each morning and drink 3 drops of Charanamrita from the deities bathing. We do that when we do Venkateshwara Abhisheka. We use Charanamrita to sprinkle on the devotee's head. The Charanamrita, what we collected from the Abhishek of Venkateshwara, we are doing that Charanamrita put on the forehead of all the devotees. In all these ways, one can purify his heart and relish spiritual bliss. When one is fixed in the platform of spiritual bliss, then one does not take another birth in the material world. In this verse, the word Sachi Sada is significant. One must engage in the purified activities of Krishna consciousness. One must learn to serve the Lord from the bona fide spiritual master, whose instructions one should accept without speculation. Those who are attached to the phantasmagoria of this world sometimes concoct their own whimsical concepts of God, but only from the bona fide spiritual master can we get perfect and pure knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and devotional service to Him. Such knowledge may be found in all the books of His divine grace. Pure knowledge from about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only the bona fide spiritual master can we get perfect and pure knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and devotional service to Him. Such knowledge may be found in all the books of His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, after Brahma, along with the Lord Shiva and the other gods, thus offered prayers to the Supreme Lord Govinda or Lord Krishna. Lord Brahma situated himself in the sky and addressed the Lord as follows. Brahma Uvacha. Bhumer Bharavatārāya Pura Vidyāpito Prabhu Tvamasmabhireshanshtam samstato proipo papaditam. Stataivo papaditam. Lord Brahma says, my dear Lord, previously we requested you to remove the burden of the earth. O unlimited personality of Godhead, that request has certainly been fulfilled. Lord Krishna might have said to the demigods, actually you requested Shirodakasa Vishnu to come down. So why are you saying that you requested me? After all, I am Govinda. Therefore Brahma has addressed the Lord here as Asheshatma, or the unlimited personality of Godhead, from whom all plenary expansions of Vishnu emanate. This is the opinion of Srila Vasanta, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur. My Lord, you have re-established the principles of religion. That is Dharmasthapanacharya. So he made the Yudhishthira as the king by providing a ritual, providing very good king to rule the country. Religion among pious men who are always firmly bound to the truth. You have also distributed your glories all over the world, and thus the whole world can be purified by hearing about you. People can get purified by hearing about Lord Krishna. Descending into the dynasty of the king Yadu, you have manifested your unique transcendental form, and for the benefit of the entire universe, you have executed magnanimous transcendental activities. Yanite charita nisha manushya sadava kalau shrunvantaha kirtayantascha tarishyantyaja tamaha. My dear Lord, those pious and saintly persons who in the age of Kali Yuga hear about your transcendental activities and also glorify them will easily cross over the darkness of the Kali Yuga. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, many persons are not attracted to the authorized Vedic literatures, minimizing the transcendental process of hearing and chanting the glories of personality of Godhead. They prefer to listen to useless and whimsical vibrations on the radio and television, in the newspapers and magazines and so on. Rather than hear about Krishna from the bona fide spiritual master, they endlessly give their own opinions about everything until they are dragged away by the force of time. After studying the temporary limited forms of the material world, they impatiently conclude that the absolute truth is formless. Such persons are actually worshipping Krishna's illusionary energy Maya, who has been authorized to kick their stubborn heads. If instead people hear directly about Krishna from the bona fide sources, they will very easily solve all the problems of their lives. In Kali Yuga, people are constantly suffering from many psychological, social, economic, historical, political, and existential problems. But all these nightmarish problems can be removed as soon as one awakens to the transcendental reality of the personality of Godhead, who is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and beyond the bewildering manifestations of the material energy. The Lord appears within this universe so that people can observe, hear about and glorify his actual activities. In this difficult age of Kali Yuga, we should all seriously take advantage of this opportunity of following Krishna philosophy and devotional practice. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O my Lord, you have descended into the Yadu Dynasty, and thus you have spent 125 autumns with your devotees. Lord Brahma says to Krishna, O my Lord, you have descended into the dynasty, and thus you have spent 125 autumns. Lord Brahma says, Lord Krishna has spent 125 autumns with your devotees. My dear Lord, there is nothing remaining at this time for your Lordship to do on behalf of the gods. You have already withdrawn your dynasty by the curse of the Brahmanas. O Lord, you are the basis of everything, and if you so desire, kindly return now to your own abode in the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. At the same time, we humbly beg that you always protect us. We are your humble servants, and on your behalf, we are managing the universal situation. We, along with our planets and followers, require your constant protection. Now the Lord Krishna is telling Bhagavan Vacha Avadaritame tanme yuddhat vibudeshwara kritam vaha karyamakilam bhumer bharo varataritaha bhumer bharo vataritaha. O Lord of the gods, Brahma, I understand your prayers and requests. Having removed the burden of the earth, I have executed everything that was required on your behalf. That very Yadava dynasty in which appeared became greatly magnified in opulence, especially in their physical strength and courage, to the extent that they threatened to devour the whole world. Therefore, I have stopped them just as the shore holds back the great ocean. The heroes of the Yadu dynasty were so powerful that even the gods could not check them. The enthusiasm of the Yadus was unlimitedly increased by their victories in dangerous battles, and they could not be killed. Due to the material spirit, they naturally desire to establish their power over the whole world. Therefore, the Lord checked them and withdraw them from the earth. If I were to leave this world without withdrawing the overly crowded members of the Yadu dynasty, the whole world would be destroyed by the deluge of their unlimited expansion. Just as a tidal wave overwhelms the boundary of the shore and wreaks havoc, an innocent people, similarly, there was imminent danger that the powerful Yadu dynasty might expand beyond all boundaries of social and political control. The members of the Yadu dynasty had become proud because of their apparent familial relationship with personality of Godhead. Although they were very religious and devoted to Brahmanical culture, they had become, as indicated by the word Draptanam, affected by pride due to their relationship with Krishna. Furthermore, due to their intense love of Krishna, they could certainly feel such intense separation after the Lord's departure to the spiritual world that they would become mad and thus become an unbearable burden on the earth. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura has pointed out, however, that the earth herself, due to the attachment of Krishna, would never consider Krishna's own family members to be anything but welcome burden. Still, Krishna wanted to remove them this burden. The example is given that for the pleasure of her husband, a beautiful young wife may decorate herself with many golden ornaments. These ornaments constitute a painful burden for the delicate wife, but although she is willing to bear this burden, the loving husband removes the ornaments for the pleasure of his wife. So the Lord, desiring to apply the wisdom, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, took precautions to remove from the earth the burden of the Yadu dynasty. Now, due to the Brahmana's curse, the annihilation of my family has already begun. O sinless Brahma, when this annihilation is finished and I am en route to Vaikuntha, I will pay a small visit to your abode. The members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal servants of the Lord. The members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal servants of the Lord Krishna. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami has explained the word nasaha or destruction as Nigurdhanam Dwarakam Praveshanam iti arthaha. The members of the Yadu dynasty entered into the hidden or confidential Dwaraka in the spiritual world, which is not manifested here on the earth. In other words, Dwaraka, the Lord's abode, is manifest on the earth, and when earthly Dwaraka is apparently removed, the eternal Dwaraka in the spiritual world remains as it is. Since the members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal associates of the Lord, there is no question of their destruction. Only our conditioned vision of their manifestation was destroyed. This is the meaning of the word nasaha. Shuka uvacha. Shuka uvacha Ityukto lokanatena swayambho pranipatyatam sahadeva ganairduvihi sahadeva gunairdevah swadama samapadyataha. Shukra Maharshi is telling, thus addressed by the Lord of the universe, the self-born Brahma fell down in obeisance at the lotus feet of the Lord. Surrendered by all the gods, the great Brahma then returned to his personal abode. Thereafter, the personality of God observed that tremendous disturbances were taking place in the holy city of Dwaraka. Thus the Lord spoke to the assembled senior members of the Yadu Dynasty as follows. Munivasa nivase kim gatersya darshanam. There is no possibility of actual disturbances or inauspiciousness events in holy places inhabited by saintly persons. Thus the so-called disturbances in Dwaraka were directly enacted by the personality of Godhead for his own auspicious purpose. Sri Bhagavanuvacha ete vai samahutpata vruttishtanti sarvataha shapaschanah kulasyasi brahmanubhyo duratyayaha. Our dynasty has been cursed by the Brahmanas. Such a curse is impossible to counteract, and thus great disturbances are appearing everywhere around us. My dear respected elders, we must not remain any longer in this place of Dwaraka if we wish to keep our lives intact. Let us go this very day to the most pious place, Prabhasa Kshetra. We have no time to delay. Many other gods coming to the earth to assist Lord Krishna in his pastimes took birth within the Yadu dynasty and appeared as Lord Krishna's associates. When the Lord had completed his earthly pastimes, he wanted to send these gods back to their previous services in the universal administration. Each god has to return to his respective planet. The transcendental city of Dwaraka is so auspicious that whoever dies there immediately goes back to Godhead. But because the other god members of the Yadu dynasty in many cases were not yet prepared to go back to Godhead, they had to die outside the city of Dwaraka. Thus Lord Krishna, pretending to be an ordinary living being, said, we are all in danger. Let us all immediately go to Prabhasa Kshetra. In this way, by his Yogamaya, Krishna bewildered such god members of the Yadu dynasty and led them away to the holy place of Prabhasa Kshetra. Since Dwaraka is Paramamangala, the most auspicious place. Not even an imitation of inauspicious can take place there. Actually, Lord Krishna's pastimes of removing the Yadu dynasty is ultimately auspicious. But since it outwardly appeared inauspicious, it could not take place in Dwaraka. Therefore, Lord Krishna led the Yadus away from Dwaraka. After having sent the gods back to their planet, Lord Krishna planned to return to the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, in his original form and remain in the eternal city of Dwaraka. His original form and remain in the eternal city of Dwaraka. Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur has made the following important comments in this verse. Prabhasa is a famous holy place located near the Veraval railway station within the region of Jangara. In chapter 30 of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is written that after hearing the words of Sri Krishna, the Yadavas went to the mainland from the island city of Dwaraka by means of boats and then traveled to Prabhasa in chariots. At Prabhasa Kshetra, they drank a beverage called Miriya and became engaged in mutual quarrel. A great battle ensued, and killing each other with hard stacks of cane, the members of the Yadu dynasty acted but the pastime of their own annihilation. Lord Sri Krishna, manifesting his four-armed form, sat down under the pipala tree, placing his left foot, the heel of which colored red like the red coca nada lotus, upon his right thigh. A hunter named Jara, watching from the shore of the ocean at Prabhasa Kshetra, mistook the Lord's red-colored foot to be the face of a deer and shot his arrow at it. At the base of that same Pipala tree under which Lord Krishna had sat, there is now a temple. 1 mile away from the tree on the seashore is the Veera Prabhanjana Mata. Veera Prabhanjana Mata. And it is said that from this point the hunter Jara fired his arrow. In the conclusion to his work, Mahabharata Tatparya Niranaya, Sri Madhvacharyapada has written the following purport to the Musula Leela. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to bewilder the demons and ensure that the world of his own devotees and the Brahmanas be maintained, created a body of material energy into which the arrow was shot. But the Lord's actual four-armed form was never touched by the arrow of Jara, who is actually the Lord's devotee, Bhrigu. In a previous age, Bhrigu Muni had placed his foot on the chest of the Lord Vishnu. In order to counteract the offense of improperly placing his foot on the Lord's chest, Bhrigu had to take birth as a degraded hunter. But even though a great devotee willingly accepts such a low birth, the personality of Godhead cannot tolerate seeing his devotee in such a fallen condition. Thus, the personality of Godhead arranged that at the end of the Dwapara Yuga, when the Lord was winding up his manifest pastimes, his devotee Bhrigu, in the form of a hunter Jara, would cast the arrow into a material body created by the Lord's illusionary energy. Thus, the hunter would become remorseful, gain release from his degraded birth, and go back to Vaikuntha Loka. Therefore, to please his devotee Bhrigu and to confuse the demons, the Supreme Lord manifested his Musala Leela at Prabhasa Kshetra. But it should be understood that this is an illusory pastime. The personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, from his very appearance in the earth, did not manifest any of the material qualities of ordinary human beings. The Lord did not appear from the womb of his mother. Rather, by his inconceivable power, he descended into the maternity room. At the time of his giving up this mortal world, he similarly manifested an illusory situation for the sake of bewildering the demons. To bewilder the non-devotees, the Lord created an illusory body out of his material energy, while simultaneously remaining personally in his own Satchit Ananda body. And thus he manifested the downfall of an illusory material form. This pretense effectively bewilders foolish demons. But Lord Sri Krishna, actually transcendental, eternal body of bliss, never experiences this. Never experienced. Lord Sri Krishna, actual transcendental, eternal body of bliss, never experiences any death. Also at Prabhasa Kshetra, there is a holy place known as Bhrigu, which was manifested by Lord Parashurama. The place at which the two rivers Saraswati and Hiranya flow together into the ocean is named Bhrigu, and there the hunter cast his arrow. There is an elaborate description of Prabhasa Tirtha in the Prabhasa Kanda of Skanda Purana. There are also many Palashrutis given within the Mahabharata in connection with the Prabhasa Tirtha. Palashrutis are scriptural statements that promise various auspicious results for one who performs a particular pious activity in Prabhasa Kshetra. In the following verses, the Lord himself will explain the particular benefits to the derived from visiting Prabhasa Kshetra and performing religious activities there. Once the moon was afflicted with a consumption because of the curse of Daksha, but just by taking bath at Prabhasa Kshetra, the moon was immediately freed from his sinful reaction and again resumed the waxing of his phases. By bathing at Prabhasa Kshetra, by offering sacrifices there to placate the forefathers and demigods, by feeding the worshipable Brahmanas with various delicious foodstuffs, and by bestowing opulent gifts upon them as the most suitable candidates for charity. We will certainly cross over these terrible dangers through such acts of charity, just as one can cross over a great ocean in a suitable boat. Shukra Maharshi continued to talk to Parikshit, O favorite son of Kurus, thus advised by the personality of Godhead Krishna, the Yadavas made up their minds to go to the holy place Prabhasa Kshetra, and thus yoked their horses to their chariots. My dear king, Uddhava has constantly faithful follower of Lord Krishna. Upon seeing the imminent departure of the Yadavas, hearing from them by the Lord's instructions and taking note of the fearful omens, he approached the personality of Godhead Krishna in a private place. He bowed down with his head at the lotus feet of the supreme controller of the universe and with folded hands addressed him as follows. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, there cannot be any actual disturbance in the Lord's own abode. The great disasters apparently occurring in Dwaraka were an external show created by the Lord to facilitate his pastimes. We can understand the pastimes of Krishna only by hearing from the recognized acharyas. Lord Krishna is not a mundane historical figure, and his activities cannot be confined within the tiny limits of material logic. Lord Krishna's pastimes are an exhibition of his achintya shakti, or inconceivable potency, which functions according to higher spiritual laws unknown to the blind conditioned souls and their petty material logic. Uddhava said, My Lord was supreme God among all the demigods. Lord Uddhava said to Krishna, O supreme God among all the gods, real pity is invoked simply by hearing and chanting your transcendental glories. My Lord, it appears that you will now withdraw your dynasty, and thus you yourself will finally give up your pastimes within this universe. You are the supreme controller and the master of all mystic power, but although you are fully capable of counteracting the Brahmana's curse against your dynasty, you are not doing so, and your disappearance is imminent. As previously mentioned, Krishna's own dynasty can never be destroyed. Therefore, the word Samritya means that Krishna was taking the Yadavas with him as he left this material world. However, in the eyes of ordinary unenlightened persons, the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty appears to be its destruction. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura has very nicely explained the statement of Uddhava as follows. Krishna is addressed as Devadeva, or the supreme God among the gods, because he experientially solved all of the problems of the gods by his incarnation within the universe. The Lord rid the world of demons and firmly established both his devotees and religious principles. Lord Krishna is addressed here as Yogesha because he is not only performed work on behalf of the gods but also revealed his beautiful transcendental form, full of transcendental qualities and ecstasies. For the pleasure of his pure devotees, Krishna is called Punya Shravana Kirtana. His pure devotees, Krishna is called Punya Shravana Kirtana because when by his internal mystic potency he exhibited his human-like activities, the Lord stimulated the writing of innumerable Vedic scriptures about his pastimes. Thus, persons who would be born in the future, like ourselves, would be able to hear and chant about the Lord's activities and also go back home, back to Godhead. Having ensured the transcendental bliss and liberation of all of us, his devotees, even those who would be born in the future. Having ensured the transcendental bliss and liberation of all of his devotees, even those who would be born in the future, Krishna decided the time had come for him to leave this material universe. Uddhava could understand the Lord's desire and said to Krishna, you have instructed the Yadavas to counteract the Brahmana's curse by taking bath at Prabhasa Kshetra, but how could mere bathing in a holy place be of greater value than seeing you, the personality of Godhead, face to face, since the Yadavas are always seeing your transcendental form And since you are the Supreme Lord, what is the use of their taking bath in the so-called holy place? Therefore, you obviously have some other purpose. If you actually wanted to counteract the curse, you should have simply say, let this curse not act, and the curse would immediately be neutralized. Therefore, you must be preparing to leave this universe, and that's why you have not counteracted the curse. O Lord Keshava, my dear master, I cannot tolerate giving up your lotus feet even for a fraction of a moment. I urge you to take me along with you to your own abode. Uddhava understood that Krishna was going to withdraw the Yadu Dynasty, and thus he begged the Lord to take him along with the Lord's abode. He had no desire to merge into Krishna's impersonal effulgency. Instead, he wanted to go to the Lord's spiritual abode and continue associating with Krishna as his dearmost friend. Krishna is the personality of Godhead and can do whatever he likes. But the devotee begs the Lord for the chance to serve him. Although the Lord manifests within the material world, his various abodes such as Vrindavana, Dwaraka, and Mathura, and although these are certainly not different from their counterparts in the spiritual world, the most advanced devotees, overwhelmed with desire to personally serve the Lord, are very eager to go to the Lord's original spiritual planet. As stated by Lord Kapila in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the pure devotees have no desire for liberation. Because of their eagerness to render service, they urge the Lord to appear before them. The six Goswamis, due to their intense eagerness to serve Radha and Krishna, urgently searched after them, calling out their names in the forest of Vrindavana. Similarly, Uddhava is urging the Lord to take him to his own abode, so that Uddhava's personal service to the Lord's lotus feet will not be interrupted even for a moment. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura has pointed out that the immature conditioned souls think that Lord Krishna is an ordinary jiva soul engaged in material activities and was thus unable to protect his own dynasty from the curse of Brahmanas. Uddhava's statement corrects such unfortunate persons. It is Lord Krishna himself who awarded pious living entities birth in the Brahminical families, and then Lord Krishna further awarded them the potency to curse his dynasty. And finally, Lord Krishna personally kept the curse intact, although he was capable of neutralizing it. Therefore, in the beginning, the middle, and the end, directly and indirectly, in the past, present, and future, Lord Krishna is the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, and he is completely transcendental to even the slightest touch of the material illusion or impotence. O my dear Krishna, your pastimes are supremely auspicious for mankind and are intoxicating beverage for the ears. Tasting such pastimes, people forget their desires for other things. Anyas Praham, or desire for things other than Krishna, indicates the material desire to enjoy wife, children, money, and so on. Ultimately, the materialist may desire religious salvation for this personal comfort and satisfaction, but all such desires are mundane, because on the spiritual platform, the pure soul thinks only the Lord's pleasure and the Lord's service. Therefore, a pure devotee can never give up Krishna, even for a moment, although for Krishna's pleasure, he can give up the entire universe. My dear Lord, you are the supreme soul, and thus you are the most dear to us. We are your devotees, and how can we possibly reject you or live without you even for a moment? Whether we are laying down, sitting, walking, standing, bathing, enjoying recreation, eating, or doing anything else, we are constantly engaged in your service. One should be constantly engaged in service of Lord Krishna by hearing about Krishna and by serving him. We can give up the illusion of trying to enjoy something separately from the Supreme Lord. If we neglect such a hearing and serving, our minds will become bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord, and seeing the world as separate from Krishna, we will take it as a place meant for our own sense gratification. This gross ignorance brings nothing but trouble to the living entity. Simply by decorating ourselves with the garlands, fragrant oils, clothes, and ornaments that you have already enjoyed, and by eating the remnants of your meals, your servants, will indeed conquer your illusory energy. It is clear from this verse that Uddhava is not approaching the Lord for liberation from the illusory energy. As a personal, confidential associate of Lord Krishna, Uddhava was undoubtedly a completely liberated soul. He is praying to the Lord because he cannot bear the thought of living without Krishna, even for a moment. This feeling is called love of God. Uddhava is addressing the Lord as follows: even if your illusory energy tries to attack us, my Lord, we will very easily conquer her by our powerful weapons, which are the remnants of your footsteps, clothes, ornaments, and so on. In other words, we will easily conquer over Maya by Krishna Prasadam and not by useless speculation of mental concoction. Naked sages who seriously endure in spiritual practice, who have measured their semen upward, who are peaceful and sinless members of the renounced order, attain the spiritual abode called Brahman. In chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Kleso diktasa tesham avyaktasta chetasam. Those who are attached to the impersonal feature of the personality of Godhead must endure grueling penances in order to achieve impersonal liberation in the realm of Brahman. Also, it is stated in the Bhagavatam, with great struggle and trouble, the yogis climb their way up into the impersonal effulgency called Brahma Jyoti. But again, they slip out of the Jyoti and fall back into the material world because they do not take shelter of the personality of Godhead. Envious fools object to the paternalism of the personality of Godhead, but these fools cannot take credit for the creation of their own body, brain, or energy, nor can they claim credit for their air, rain, vegetables, fruits, sun, moon, and so on. In other words, they are totally dependent on the mercy of God at every second, and yet they arrogantly state that they do not want to accept the shelter of the Lord because they are self-sufficient. In fact, some bewildered living entities even think that they themselves are God, although they cannot explain why God has to struggle and toil to achieve meager success in the yoga system. Therefore, the Uddhava is pointing out that unlike the impersonalist and meditators, the pure devotees very easily cross over the illusory energy because they are totally attached to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is always transcendental, and if one is firmly attached to the Lord's lotus feet, then he is also transcendental. The costless mercy of Krishna is more valuable than millions and billions of years of one's own struggling and straining. One should try to get the Lord's mercy, and then everything will become very easy on the path of spiritual realization. In this age, one can achieve the mercy of Lord Krishna by constantly chanting his holy name as recommended in the Shastras. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. If one constantly chants Lord Krishna's holy names, avoiding offenses against the names, then surely one will achieve the same result as Uddhava. Uddhava was not interested in so-called Brahmana realization, but rather he wanted to go on drinking the maddening nectar of the beautiful smiling of the Lord's moon-like face. O greatest of mystics, although we are conditioned souls wandering on this path of the fruitive work, we will certainly cross beyond the darkness of this material world simply by hearing about your Lordship in the association of your devotees. Thus, we are always remembering and glorifying the wonderful things you do and the wonderful things you say. We ecstatically recall your amorous pastimes with your confidential conjugal devotees, and how you boldly smile and move about while engaged in such youthful pastimes. My dear Lord, your loving pastimes are bewilderingly similar to the activities of ordinary people within this material world. In this verse, Uddhava, Brahm, by stating Brahmanatha Karma Varmasu, humbly presents himself as one of the conditioned souls entangled in fruitive activities. Still, Uddhava is confident that he will certainly cross over the illusory energy because he is addicted to chanting and remembering the glorious activities and words of Lord Krishna. Similarly, Rupa Goswami has stated, although one may outwardly appear to be involved in this material world, if one is always engaged 24 hours a day in the service of Lord Krishna, then one is considered to be a liberated soul. Uddhava states here that hearing and chanting the holy name and pastimes of Krishna is infinitely more effective than becoming a naked yogi in the forest. Uddhava states here that hearing and chanting the holy names and pastimes of Krishna is infinitely more effective than becoming naked yogi in the forest of running the constant risk of becoming, due to lusty desires and sex indulgence, a naked monkey in the forest. Uddhava is begging the Lord for the mercy of his Sudarshana Chakra, whose effulgence is represented by the process of remembering and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. One who absorbs himself in the incomparable bliss of thinking of the Lord's abode easily becomes free from all lamentation, illusion, and fear. That is the recommendation of Sri Uddhava. Now, the last shloka of the chapter, Shuka Uvacha. Shuka said, Evam Vidyapito Rajan Bhagavan Devaki Sutaha Ekantinam Priyam Mrityumudbhavam Samabhashataha. Shuka Goswami says, O King Parikshit, thus addressed the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the son of Devaki, began to reply confidently to his dear unalloyed servant Uddhava. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, the conditioned living entities, by their movements, laughter, activities, and words, simply bind themselves more and more in the material existence. But if they engage in hearing and chanting about the pastimes of the personality of God and Lord Krishna, the conditioned souls will achieve liberation from the bondage of repeated birth and death. This process of supreme liberation will now be elaborately described by Lord Krishna to his dearmost devotee, Sri Uddhava. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Yadu Dynasty Retides to Prabhasa Kshetra. The next chapter, 7th chapter, Lord Krishna instructs Uddhava. This is called Uddhava Gita. We will read that next. नमोस्तु अनंताय सहस्रमूर्तये सहस्रपादाक्षररूपाय सहस्रनाम्ने पुरुषाष्टये सहस्रकोटियुगधारिणे नमः सहस्रकोटियुगधारिणे नमः आकाशात् पतितं यदागत सागरं सर्वदेव नमस्कारः श्रीकेशवं प्रयुक्तो नमः सर्ववेदेशत् पुण्यं सर्वतीर्थेषु यत्फलं तत्फलं प्रमाप्य वासनात् वासुदेवस्य वासन्ते जगत्रयं सर्वभूतनिवासोऽसि वासुदेवमुस्ते कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते समावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि नारायणायेति समर्पयामि नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Hari Om. We'll see you tomorrow. The devotional activities of Uddhava Gita is very, very important. Tomorrow's discussion. Lord Krishna is instructs Uddhava about all sorts of devotional activities, how this should be performed, and what are the benefits of following this. Everything will be in the Uddhava Gita. It's also called Lord Krishna instructs Uddhava or Uddhava Gita. See you tomorrow. Thank you very much.